Welcome back to Dog Cinema Recaps, where today we have got our supercuts, our last few weeks of work, all put together into one video without all the unnecessary... Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to describe it. Without us intervening in between. So, thank you once again for Brenda Keane for the suggestion. We have thoroughly enjoyed doing this franchise. And stick around to the end to see what franchise is coming up next.
The film opens with young Casey Becker receiving phone calls from an unidentified caller. At first, it seems as if he has gotten a wrong number, but it soon becomes clear he is toying with her. His voice gets more and more threatening. Casey becomes frightened when she realises her caller can see her. She begins to panic when the caller threatens to kill her and forces her to answer movie trivia in exchange for her life and the life of her boyfriend Steve, who she sees tied up on the back patio.
After killing Steve, the caller torments Casey until finally breaking into the house and chasing her. He's dressed in a black costume with a white ghost mask over his face. He chases her across the lawn as her parents pull into the driveway. They don't see her, and Casey's been stabbed in the chest, unable to scream. After killing Casey, the murderer strings up her body in the backyard for her parents to discover.
We then meet Sidney Prescott and her boyfriend Billy Loomis. Billy sneaks into her bedroom window and attempts to have sex with her, but Sidney is unsure and wants to remain a virgin for now. They are almost discovered by Sidney's father, Neil, and he comes into Sidney's room to discuss the fact that he is going out of town. We learn that Sidney's mother was killed almost 1 year before, that Sidney and her father are alone, and that Sidney's testimony identified Ray Donovan, Cotton Weary, as her killer, although Cotton swears he is innocent.
The next day, Sydney's school is abuzz with news that the murderer in classes are temporarily cancelled. Sydney decides that since her father is gone and she's alone, she's going to stay with her best friend Tatum, and that is also a bed I would like to crawl into. Sydney, Tatum and Billy sit with their group of friends, which includes Randy, who is obsessed with horror movies, and Stu, class clown type, who used to date Casey Becker, and to be fair, seems like an all-round nice guy. Sydney goes home, waiting for Tatum to pick her up.
The phone rings, and she hears a strange voice, the same one that was on the call with Casey. At first she thinks it's Randy joking around, but the caller turns abusive and brings up Sydney's mother. Do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't. The killer emerges from a closet in Sydney's house, and a chase starts. Why did he always go up the stairs? Throughout the house, and Sydney locks herself in her bedroom and dials 911. Then Billy arrives, climbing through Sydney's window again, and a cell phone falls out of his back pocket.
Sydney realises that it may have been him phoning her, and she runs downstairs out the house only to be greeted by the police. Not just the police, Dewey with a mask holding it up to the door. She's taken to the police station along with Billy, where he is questioned at the police station. Sydney meets Dewey, Tatum's older brother and town deputy. Outside the police station, she is confronted by nosy reporter Gail Weathers, the writer of an exposé about the murder of Sydney's mother. Gail feels that Cotton Weary was wrongfully convicted, and now Gail is following up a story about the murder of Casey Becker. She feels the murders are connected. Sydney then smacks Gail so hard, she gets married to Chandler.
Tatum takes Sydney to her house, where she receives another phone call from the killer, who tells her, "You got the wrong guy, Sydney, again." The next day at school, Sydney is threatened by the killer while she is in the bathroom, but she escapes. School is over and a curfew is now in place, so the group of friends decide to throw a party. Of course you do. Gail Weathers takes a cameraman to the party in an attempt to talk to Sydney, but Dewey intercepts her. The two of them talk and seem to have a mutual affection for each other.
It's actually quite nice because them two did legit get married after this film, so... They enter the party and Dewey chooses not to bust the partygoers for underage drinking. During the party, Billy and Sydney go upstairs and Sydney has hi with him. Meanwhile, Tatum has a confrontation with Ghostface in the garage. Tatum tries to escape through a cat flap, where she is killed by the world's strongest garage door. Now! as much as we joke about this scene, because we do,
Yeah.
it's iconic.
It is
The whole,
the stupidest kills I've ever seen in a horror
where she's like,
film.
like cuddling into Ghostface. Oh, please, Mr. Killer, don't kill me. And then it's just an all-out brawl where she's throwing bottles at him. She twats him with the freezer door.
And she tries to go through a cat.
But thing is, the stupid thing about it, the tits get through.
Yeah.
She could have actually got through. It could have worked. It was just a case of like, no, I'm getting lifted up now. Well, fuck it. I've always wanted to be in a claw machine.
Yeah. Hope for the best.
So, yeah, as much as I do genuinely love that scene.
After the interlude between Sidney and Billy, the door opens and in walks the killer, who stabs Billy in the back. Another chase ensues. Dewey is stabbed. Gail, in her news van, swerves to avoid hitting Sidney and runs her car down a hill, striking a tree and appearing to be killed. Sidney ends up in the house facing Randy and Stu, both claiming the other is the killer. Stu is vying to come inside and obtain the gun. Randy wants to leave.
Eventually, Billy stumbles down the stairs, bloodied, and lets Randy and Stu into the house, shooting Randy and turning to reveal that the blood is fake. Billy was only pretending to be stabbed. He was hated by his accomplice, Stu. Both of them are the killers. Billy also reveals that he was responsible for the killing of Sidney's mother, who had had an affair with his father.
Billy blamed Mrs. Prescott for the breakup of his parents' marriage and murdered Mrs. Prescott out of revenge. Billy and Stu also reveal that they all have kidnapped Mr. Prescott, who is tied up in a closet. They have framed Mr. Prescott for the murders and intend to wound each other to make it look like as if Mr. Prescott attacked them, at which point they will both kill him and Sidney. Billy and Stu inflict flesh wounds on each other with a knife, but they are interrupted by Gail Weathers, who returns armed with Dewey's gun.
Now, this part of the film for me
I'm getting a little woozy here.
Oh, it's perfect. Matthew Lillard just going fucking insane in this, but it's kind of like the moment.
It's that build up to it, and it's like, oh!
It's where they discuss, because you can tell that they're in love and they don't want to admit it as well.
It's that love relationship between the two of them that is just not fully both-sided.
As Scream is a horror, there's meant to be a parody of horrors, and then becomes one of the greatest horror films of all time, and I think it lives and dies on that scene.
Yes.
If that scene isn't as good as what it is, Matthew
Lillard made that
We're
scene.
not talking about Scream today if that scene is not as good as what it is. It's incredible. Gail, the silly sausage, forgets to switch off the gun's safety and a struggle ensues. Sidney strikes back at her tormentors. Fun fact on this one, with the umbrella scene where she rams it into the chest, there was a chest plate on, and Neve Campbell legit missed. And when Skeet goes down, it's like shouting in pink. That's genuine. That's 100% happening. Killing Stu with a television and shooting Billy in the head with a gun. Dewey is revealed to be alive, as is Randy. All ends well as Gail reports that the Mocker House has been the scene of what seemed to be a real-life scary movie. Sidney and Randy are now attending Windsor College less than a year after the Woodsboro murders took place. They see news reports that a couple was murdered in a movie theatre at a preview of the Stab movie, which was based on the book by Gail Weathers about the Woodsboro murders. Phil Stevens is stabbed through the head through the wall of a bathroom cubicle. The killer then enters the cinema and sits next to Maureen Evans, and she assumes the killer is simply her boyfriend wearing a mask.
During the Casey Becker kill scene in the film Stab, the crowd goes wild. Taking advantage of this, the killer stabs Maureen multiple times. Seriously wounded and dying, she climbs up the stairs in front of the movie screen and lets out one final cry.
That's like a banshee cry as well, my god.
As the crowd realises she isn't faking, she falls down dead. Soon Sidney and Randy realise the nightmare is still all starting over again. Gail arrives to seek fame again, which she already has in abundance because of the events of Woodsboro, and because she is also worried about the second killing spree.
Dewey also arrives on the campus to try and help protect Sidney. Once again in the rules scene, Randy and Dewey discuss the fact that anyone could be the killer. During the course of this discussion, Randy continues the job of explaining the rules of a horror movie.
There are rules!
And this time, rules of a sequel. Cece Cooper, a sorority girl and vampire slayer, is the next victim.
While alone at her sorority house, Cece is threatened by the killer over the phone, before the killer attacks her inside the house. Cece runs upstairs where she throws a potted plant and a bike at the killer, who puts a bike on the stairs.
That is a crazy moment.
Cece is chased to the top floor, where the killer throws her through the balcony doors. He then stabs her in the back twice, before throwing her over the third-storey balcony to her death.
This is where the film goes downhill for me. I mean, killing Buffy? Like, come on!
It's that chase. It's always a chase scene up the stairs, though.
Like, Sarah Michelle Gellar had a wild year as well, because she was in I Know What You Did Last Summer as well. Buffy was starting.
She was in so many different things.
And then she gets killed by the second worst Ghostfaces, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose 2 out of 3 ain't bad. After the police discover the body, the students at the nearby Martini Mixer go over to investigate, leaving Sidney and her boyfriend Derek at the Delta Lambda Zeta house. Try say that 10 times. The killer attacks Sidney, but Derek appears and helps Sidney escape before he charges into the house himself. He's slashed on the arm, but the wound is not serious. In the confusion, the killer escapes, and also made himself look very guilty.
At the police headquarters, Gail and Dewey notice that the names of the new victims loosely match the 3 first victims from Woodsboro. Maureen Evans matches Maureen Prescott. Casey Cece Cooper matches Casey Becker. And Phil Stevens matches Stephen Oath. The police chief assigns 2 detectives to protect Sidney from any further attempts on her life. Later, Sidney is in the school theatre rehearsing for the play Cassandra, when the killer attacks through the mass chaos in one of the scenes. Although it is not clear if this is simply a figment of Sidney's imagination or not.
Randy is the next victim. The group's outside on the campus lawn amongst a dozen of college students enjoying the fine weather. The killer telephones and taunts them, claiming he can see them from where he is. Gail and Dewey search the dozen or so students in the area with mobile phones, trying to quickly reveal if any of them is the killer. Randy is also looking around whilst talking to the killer on the phone. He's trying to stall the killer in order to help Gail and Dewey find him. While he's outside cameraman Joel's van, Randy is unexpectedly pulled into the van and stabbed to death, before his body is soon discovered by Joel, Gail and Dewey.
Officer Andrews and Officer Richards, the detectives who were assigned to protect Sidney, are attacked while their vehicle is stopped at traffic lights. The shittest detectives ever. One of the detectives tries to shoot the killer while on the hood of the car. The killer deliberately crashes the car, killing the detectives and knocking the killer unconscious. Gail and Dewey become involved with the killer, resulting in Dewey being stabbed and seriously wounded. Sidney and Hallie, Sidney's roommates, narrowly escape the wreckage of the car crash by squeezing past the unconscious killer in the front seat. Once out of the car, Sidney debates whether to remove the killer's mask or not, and decides to, but when she returns to find the killer is gone. She then turns around only to see Hallie being stabbed by the killer.
Sidney runs to the school theatre, where she is confronted by the killer once more. The killer reveals himself to be Mickey. You know, Mickey, who we haven't seen from like half the film, barely mentioned this whole time. The last time we saw him, he was doing a dance in the canteen. Yeah. That Mickey. Her new boyfriend's best friend. Sidney finds her boyfriend Derek tied up to a stage prop, and Mickey then shoots Derek in the chest. Mickey is also revealed to have had a partner. Sidney turns around to see Gail coming out of the stage door, leading her to believe that Gail is the other killer. Gail and Mickey shake their heads as a nope, and Debbie Salt comes out holding the other cop's gun. Sidney recognizes her as Mrs. Loomis, the mother of Sidney's previous boyfriend, Billy. Weak ass reveal. Like, yeah. I'm digging the Pamela Voorhees vibe that we've kind of got going, but
it didn't really make a lot of sense because
the ending to Scream 2 is so bad.
Mickey reveals that it was his plan all along to be caught for the murders, and to become infamous and immortalised by the media. He wanted to blame the violent killings on horror movies and the effect of cinema violence in society.
He met Mrs. Loomis on a Psycho website and she agreed to fund his college tuition in return for his part in the killings. She also helped Mickey place calls to the victims. Mrs. Loomis' motive for killing Sidney and her friends was revenge for Sidney having killed her son. However, Sidney points out to her that if she had not abandoned Billy prior to this, then Billy and Stu Macher wouldn't have started the killing spree in the first place, which is obviously the events from the first film.
Mrs. Loomis shoots Mickey, removing him as a potential threat, and stating that it was intended legal defence was absurd anyway, and that no one would have believed it. Mickey is shot, he reflexively shoots Gail, causing her to fall off stage.
Sidney's cornered by Mrs. Loomis and tricks her momentarily into believing that Mickey is still alive, and when Mrs. Loomis is distracted, Sidney hits her in the face with a prop jar. Sidney fights back and barricades herself backstage, where she presses various stage buttons, ultimately causing the front of the stage to collapse on Mrs. Loomis. It's barely light rocks. This ending scene is just, oh my god, so bad. Mrs. Loomis survives because she got attacked by pillows. It gets Sidney in an arm lock. However, Cotton, the man Sidney initially blamed for killing his mother, arrives and takes Mickey's gun.
Mrs. Loomis tries to convince Cotton to kill Sidney, but Cotton chooses to shoot Mrs. Loomis instead, revealing he never intended to hurt Sidney. Sidney and Cotton discover that Gail is wounded but alive, and they help her. Mickey suddenly jumps up dramatically and Gail and Sidney shoot him multiple times. Then Sidney turns around and decides to shoot Mrs. Loomis in the head, just in case. It is then revealed that despite his ordeal, Dewey survived his stabbing. He is wheeled out on a gurney and taken away in an ambulance. Gail decides to ride with him in the ambulance to the hospital. It turns out that Dewey's scar tissue from the previous stabbing in his back prevented the latest stabbing from being fatal.
Sidney and Cotton walk out from the school and the media jump Sidney, questioning her about her ordeal, wanting a scoop of news. But Sidney turns her attention to Cotton, saying that he's the one that they should be talking to. She then walks across the college campus.
Cotton Weary, now the host of a successful talk show, is contacted by Ghostface, who demands to know the whereabouts of Sidney Prescott. When Cotton refuses to cooperate, Ghostface breaks into his home and attacks his girlfriend, Christine.
The voice changer thing is dumb, I hate it. I take back everything I said. The voice changer thing is so shit.
It's just... Oh,
I hate it so much.
Off the rails
with
so quickly.
all of my being, he just does the voice perfectly.
Cotton rushes home, only for Ghostface to kill Christine, then Cotton.
Detective Mark Kincaid contacts Gail Weathers to discuss the recent murders, prompting her to travel to Hollywood. There, she finds Dewey working as an advisor on the set of Stab 3, the third film in the series based on the Ghostface murders. Ghostface kills Stab 3 actress Sarah Darling, causing production of the film to be halted.
The remaining cast, along with Dewey, Gail, gather at the home of Jennifer Joel, the actress playing Gail in Stab 3. Ghostface murders her bodyguard. He then uses a gas leak to cause an explosion, which kills actor Tom Prince.
Oh, this is like... It's just the whole thing. They're having the party, and well, not really the party,
yeah.
And then
the meeting, everybody's there.
You know that Ghostface is around, and then the fax machine starts going crazy. They get killed via fax, and the gas was left on. He had to find a lighter, and oh god, it was. I don't take back everything I said just yet. I do genuinely love this film. It just does not start very well. Sidney's living in seclusion as a crisis counsellor for an abused women's hotline. Try saying that 10 times. Fearing another killer may strike, having uncovered Sidney's location, the killer begins taunting her by phone using the fucking voice changer to sound exactly like her deceased mother, Maureen Prescott, forcing Sidney out of hiding and drawing her to Hollywood. Martha Meeks, the sister of Sidney's murdered friend Randy, who as well. They were originally
Yeah.
going to have it that he survived the attack in Scream 2, which just no, he got deaded.
Yeah,
And this
definitely.
is a perfect cameo as well. Visits Sidney and the others to deliver a videotape that Randy made before his death, warning them that the rules of a horror film do not apply to anyone in the third and final film of a trilogy, and that any of them, including Sidney, could die. Now, he also said that at this point the killer's got superhuman powers, so take everything he says with a big old pinch of salt.
Sidney is later attacked by Ghostface at a movie set, forcing the police to hold her at the station. Dewey, Gail, Jennifer and the remaining cast, Angelina and Tyson, attend a birthday party for Stab 3's directors, Roman Bridger. After Gail discovers Roman's body in the basement, Ghostface attacks the group, killing Angelina. Then Tyson with the best kill of the movie.
He snaps his freaking neck! The rug, that stage is perfect! I love it so much. I mean, he doesn't actually die exactly at that point, but that stage 4 where he kind of does a backflip straight onto his head, onto the floor, just, it's insane.
It is such a good one. Then Jennifer.
The killer then orders Sidney to the mansion to save Gail and Dewey, by help of the fucking voice changer. When Sidney arrives, Ghostface lures her inside to where Gail and Dewey are bound and gagged. As Sidney's freeing them, Ghostface appears, though Sidney gains the upper hand using a hidden gun to fight him off. Kincaid shows up, but is knocked unconscious by Ghostface.
Sidney flees and hides in a secret screening room, where she is discovered by Ghostface, who reveals himself to be Roman, who having survived being shot by wearing a bulletproof vest. Roman admits to being Sidney's half-brother, born to their mother, Maureen, when she was an actress in Hollywood. Years prior, he tried reuniting with her, only for her to reject him due to him being a product of rape.
Bitter over the rejection, Roman began stalking her, filming all the men she philandered with and showing to Billy Loomis the footage of Billy's father with Maureen, which motivated Billy and Stu Macker to kill her, thus setting off a string of murders in Sidney's hometown and at her college. I'm a director. When he discovers how much fame Sidney had attracted due to those events, Roman snapped and lured Sidney out of hiding, planning to kill her and frame her for the murders. After Roman kills Stab producer John Milton, whom he accuses of being his biological father, and one of their mother's rapists. Now, Roman is a wet wipe. Throughout the whole film, absolute fucking wet wipe.
Yeah.
But the monologue at the end is on point. Yeah. It's genuinely just
one of the killer's,
fantastic.
Reasonings, it was a very, very good one. It just was...
It was just really, really well done, and I kind of thought, like you say, you look at Roman throughout this whole thing, like, he ain't shit, he is nothing. And then he drops like one of the best horror monologues of all time. And then Sidney just shuts it the fuck down. It's fantastic.
Like,
yeah, exactly. After all that, she's laughing at him, man.
Sidney denounces him and his motives, provoking an enraged Roman to engage Sidney in a fight, which ends with Roman shooting Sidney in the chest. However, Sidney survives the shot and stabs Roman multiple times, revealing him that she too was wearing a bulletproof vest.
They love bulletproof vests.
Definitely.
In Scream 3. They've got loads of them. They feed the children on bulletproof vests. They're everywhere.
As Dewey and Gail arrive, a screaming Roman suddenly resurfaces with a knife. Sidney yells at Dewey to shoot Roman in the head, which Dewey does, finally killing him. Now,
the perfect part about that is he shoots him about 16 times in the chest. Sidney is screaming at him, shoot him in the head, shoot him in the... This is what I mean. I fucking love this film. Later at Sidney's house, Dewey proposes to Gail, who accepts. Sidney returns from a walk and leaves her gates, which were previously shown to be alarmed, open. She enters her home and is invited to join Dewey, Gail and Kincaid to watch a movie as she goes to join the others. Mary and Trudy, two high school girls, are stalked, then brutally killed by Ghostface. But this is just the opening scene to Stab 6, which Rachel and Chloe are watching. Rachel nags on about horror movie cliches, then Chloe gets out a knife and stabs her twice. Anna is not fucking about here.
No.
This is the opening to Stab 7, which Jenny and Marnie are watching. After Jenny pranks Marnie, she is killed. Jenny is threatened over the phone by a voice and then chased through the house by Ghostface himself, leading to her demise in the garage.
10 years since the events known as the Woodsboro Massacre, Sidney Prescott returns to her hometown as one of the stops on her book signing tour. However, things do not go well when Dewey interrupts the signing, claiming that the murderer of Jenny and Marnie are linked to a mobile phone somewhere in the bookstore's vicinity. Everyone is surprised when the phone is found in the trunk of Sidney's rental car along with bloody handprints. While Dewey intends to find out what is going on, the incident quickly spreads across the town like wildfire. Gail Weathers Riley gets her old spark back in an effort to be in the spotlight again, intends to investigate what happened.
Dewey assigns a police detail to patrol the place where Sidney will be staying, which happens to be the residence of her aunt Kate and cousin Jill. It is here that Sidney has a deja vu moment in going to her cousin's room, only to see her cousin's ex-boyfriend Trevor sneaking out a nearby window after Jill has asked him to leave. Later on that evening, Jill and her friend Kirby are watching a movie when Kirby gets a call from someone sounding like Ghostface. The voice claims that he's hiding in the closet, which Kirby checks but finds no one. The voice then claims that he isn't standing in Jill's closet in the house next door. Their friend Olivia is shocked when the killer bursts out from her closet and gruesomely kills her. Sidney hears what's going on and breaks into Olivia's place, unfucking armed because Sidney Prescott does not give a fuck, attempting to stop the killer. However, he escapes just as the police arrive. There is a lot of blood in this scene as well.
A lot.
Like a lot. I'm wondering how many fucking people he killed in there.
Sidney is taken to the local hospital to be checked over, but is upset when her book signing publicist Rebecca claims that these new killings can help the sale of Sidney's self-help book. Sidney fires Rebecca on the spot, who heads to the facility's parking garage only to be menaced and then killed. Before her body is thrown off the top of the garage onto the roof of a nearby news van. Gail is trying to get to the bottom of the mystery and convinces Sidney to come with her to the local cinema club at the high school run by Charlie and Robbie Mesa. The two claim that if the killer is attempting to kill people in a remake fashion, while some things may be similar, the killer's style is not going to be exactly like the first time, and that to make the situation even more intense, they may be recording the murders to post them on the internet.
When someone brings up at the end of the murder spree, the first time was at a house party, Charlie and Robbie immediately assume that the killer may strike at their upcoming Stabathon, where they'll run all the movies in the Stab series. Some questions why hold the Stabathon in the first place, but the guys assume that they aren't the only party in town, as teenagers on a Friday night have plenty of other party options. I'm sure it'll be fine. Gail manages to find a way to the party, the Stabathon, and disguising herself, sets up cameras to view what's going on in the party.
Teenagers' party to watch cameras.
Doesn't sound creepy at all. Get on it, Gail. However, as she watches from a car, the cameras start to get covered up. Gail places a call to Dewey before sneaking back into the party, the underage party, and she's in the 40s at this point.
While attempting to fix the camera in the rafters, she comes across a remote webcam before being stabbed by the killer. Dewey shows up just as Gail collapses to the ground, but the killer has once again eluded capture. She survives and is taken to the local hospital. Meanwhile, two police officers, Ross and Perkins, who are on watch outside Kate's house, are both killed by Ghostface. Sidney finds out that Jill snuck out and went to Kirby's. When Kate gets back from shopping, Sidney tells her that Jill went to Kirby's. Kate attempts to call her, she does not answer, and as the two attempt to go over to get her, the killer appears and kills Kate. Sidney manages to escape and rushes over to Kirby's place. The killer manages to gets to Kirby's house before she arrives.
Jill, Kirby, Charlie and Robbie are relaxing at Kirby's place when Trevor shows up. Jill claims that he wasn't invited, but Trevor claims he got a message from Jill's phone. Jill explains this to be impossible as a phone has been missing recently. Kirby suggests that Jill should go to her room and look for it, and Trevor follows her, very 90210. Robbie indulges in some alcohol and ends up going outside, where he is killed. Back inside, Kirby reveals to Charlie that her penchant for horror movies and that she finds him attractive. However, the moment is interrupted when Trevor reappears. Charlie and Trevor leave the living room, leaving Kirby alone. Jill comes from downstairs and Sidney comes into the house, telling Jill and Kirby of Kate's death.
Ghostface appears and chases them through the house, where Jill hides under a bed and Kirby hides in the basement. When Sidney comes down to the basement to find Kirby, they both find Charlie on the porch, covered in blood. Ghostface appears and ties him to a chair. Kirby's phone rings and the killer claims to want to play a game with her, testing her horror movie knowledge. With the killer busy, Sidney runs upstairs to try to find Jill, only to find her missing. When the voice on the phone stops, Kirby rushes out and attempts to untie Charlie, only to have him stab her, upset that it took till now for her to find him attractive, which leaves her for dead.
She shouldn't find him attractive. It's Hayden fucking Pantier. His dick
I
must
don't
be
get that
massive.
one.
No one's fucking falling for that. We've all heard of Beauty and the Beast stories, but it's not Beauty and the Beast. It's owner and fucking Petman. No way.
Sidney is then attacked by Charlie with the knife, but manages to escape and she starts running to the front door. She is then stabbed by Ghostface, confirming that there is a second killer.
Ghostface removes his mask. Or should it be her mask? Because it's revealed that this is Jill. She's the second killer. Jill then lets loose a torrid hatred of Sidney, claiming that her cousin's fame was always rubbed in her face and how she's sick of it. Jill now claims that soon Sidney will die. In the wake of the killer's spree, she'll become famous instead. Charlie also assumes he's going to be a part of the plan, but is shocked when Jill kills him as well. She then kills Trevor with a gun. She shoots him in the dick.
Yeah.
And supposedly kills Sidney. Jill then sets up the situation as if her ex-boyfriend Trevor was a true killer, planting the knife, mutilating herself, leaving bits of her hair in his hands, and smashing and breaking things around the room. Dewey and the officers eventually reach Kirby's place, and immediately, when it seems that Jill is still alive, the press descend to peg her as survivor. In the hospital, Dewey visits Jill, who claims that maybe one day she could write a book with Gale, since they both had the same injuries.
Dewey also explains to Jill that Sidney will recover, revealing that she is still alive and everything will be fine. However, once he leaves, Jill gets out of bed and rushes to Sidney's room, intending to kill her cousin once and for all. Dewey manages to show up, having realised that Jill slipped up mentioning similar injuries to Gale, something that she should not have been able to know, but is knocked over by Jill using a bedpan. Gale and Deputy Officer Judy Hicks are right behind him, but Jill managed to take Dewey's gun and corners him behind a bed.
To be fair to Judy, I mean, they kind of made her out to be a bit of a sleaze in the beginning, because
I know they're all about that whodunit, but they made her out to be like she was after Dewey. She wanted to be in his pants.
Yeah, I mean, you're not cheating on your wife by having my lemon squares, Judy. Like, what the fuck did you put in them?
Jill demands Judy's gun and gets it before shooting her. Jill then freshens Gale, only to have Gale buy time before Sidney manages to charge up a defibrillator, using the paddles to shock her cousin into submission. Everything seems okay until Jill rises for one last scare and Sidney kills her cousin with a bullet to the head. 25 years after Billy Loomis and Stu Mocker's killing spree in Woodsboro, high school student of Nevermore Academy, Tara Carpenter is home alone when she is attacked by Ghostface and left hospitalised. Tara only survives as the cops got to the house on time before the Ghostface could kill her.
In Modesto, Tara's estranged older sister, Sam Carpenter, is informed by Wes Hicks, one of Tara's friends, about the attack. Sam returns to Woodsboro with her boyfriend Richie Kirsch, who I'm sure is a lovely guy, to visit Tara at the hospital, where Sam is reunited with Tara's friend group. Wes, Amber Freeman, twins Chad and Mindy Meeks Martin, and Liv McKenzie, too many M's there. That night, Liv's ex-boyfriend and Fake's Exorcism show co-producer, kudos if you get that reference, Vince Schneider, who is Stu's nephew, is killed by Ghostface. Vince had been stalking Liv for the past few weeks, whilst working for the police investigating suicides from people who experienced trauma recently.
Can you remove the fucking shameless plug for the Smile recap and the upcoming Cleansing Hour recap, please? After an encounter with Ghostface at the hospital, Sam tells Tara that she has been dealing with hallucinations of Billy, who Sam learned as a teenager was her biological father. Sam's mother was married to her father, but had sex with Billy Loomis as an affair, and conceived Sam. Sam's true parentage resulted in their parents' separation. This is why Sam became estranged from Tara. Sam promised her mother that she would never reveal the truth to Tara, and got into drugs to keep herself away from reality.
Recovering drug addict in a horror movie!
Calm your tits, princess. This isn't an Evil Dead recap. Jane Levy's not in this film. Sam and Richie visit Dewey Riley, who is divorced from Gail Weathers. They ask for his help in stopping the killer. Dewey tells Sam not to trust her boyfriend, and the killer is most probably part of Tara's friends group. Dewey contacts Gail and Sidney, warning them about the return of Ghostface. Dewey joins them at Mindy and Chad's house. She is reunited with the twins' mother, Martha Meeks. The gang realises that Vince was the son of Stu Macker's sister. Stu Macker was Billy Loomis's accomplice. Mindy deduces that the killer is making a requel, using Tara and her friends as a new generation and using Sam's connection to Billy as a way to wave the legacy characters.
Ghostface then murders Wes in what's one of the best meta kills in horror, going through all the expected horror tropes only to throw the audience, making you genuinely question when it'll happen. Then his mother Judy Hicks is killed at their home, on the front lawn, in broad fucking daylight. He's got some stones, his ghosty face!
Definitely. Dewey reunites with Gail, who has arrived in town to cover the story. Meanwhile, Sam finds that all the cops are at Judy's house and realises that her sister, Wednesday, is unprotected at the hospital.
She knows that Tara's in trouble. Dewey goes with Sam. At the hospital, Tara and Richie are attacked by Ghostface, but are saved by an arriving Dewey and Sam. Sam, Tara and Richie escape. But Dewey is killed when he attempts to finish off Ghostface. Whilst this is a great way to kill off Dewey, it's super unrealistic.
Yes.
He knows better than to hesitate when it comes to Ghostface. Also, with this Ghostface being, spoiler alert, with this Ghostface being Amber, I don't understand how she overpowers him so easily.
No, this really doesn't make any sense. We knew that Dewey would have to die at some point because he's had too many.
Completely on board with that.
But this one did not make sense.
This kind of is like the Scream 4 moment where you've got Emma Roberts throwing people through windows. It's like, yeah, no, it's a great idea, but
in reality, it doesn't.
It's just not going to happen. Sidney arrives in town after learning of Dewey's death and meets both Gail and Sam at the hospital. Sidney asks Sam to help stop the killer, but Sam declines, choosing to leave the town with Richie and Tara.
Sidney puts a tracker on Sam's car. Tara forgot her inhaler and decides to make a pit stop at Amber's house, as she kept an extra one there.
Fucking convenient.
Sidney and Gail follow the trio to Amber's, which is revealed to be Stu's former home, where the original Woodsboro massacre took place. While a party is in progress to honour Wes's memory...
For Wes. As Sam and Tara arrive with Richie, Amber ends the party and sends everybody home. Chad and Mindy are both attacked by Ghostface, who manage to survive. Gail calls Sam and tells her that the house they are in is the original Stu Macker house and tells her to leave ASAP.
As the friend group convenes, Amber pulls out Dewey's gun and shoots Liv in the head, revealing herself to be the killer. Sidney and Gail arrive and Richie is revealed to be Amber's accomplice. He stabs Sam, and then he and Amber take Sam, Sidney and Gail into the kitchen, where Sidney has her first face-off against Billy and Stu. Richie and Amber reveal they are fans of the Stab film series who met online.
Disappointed in the trajectory taken in the most recent Stab 8, they decided to embark on a new killing spree to bring back the original cast, provide new and improved source material for a future Stab film, then frame Sam as the killer. Sam attacks Richie and Tara attacks Amber, but is incapacitated. Richie goes after Sam while Sidney and Gail fight Amber together, ending with Gail breaking free and shooting Amber, who lands on a turn-on stove and set on fire. Richie pursues Sam, who sees another hallucination of Billy, which bring her attention to Amber's abandoned knife.
Embracing her parental heritage, she uses the knife to stab Richie repeatedly and fatally slits his throat before shooting him to ensure he is dead.
Fucking overkill! Yes. Love it!
Yeah, but at least we didn't get this sitting up Ghostface
Oh,
again.
fucking hell. They always come back for one, but not that fucker.
A horribly burnt Amber attempts to attack the group again, but is shot to death by Tara.
She looks like the end of Megan.
Tara and the Meeks twins are loaded into ambulances to be taken to the hospital. Sam thanks Sidney and Gail for their help. Gail promises not to write a new book about the new murders and give the killers notoriety, opting to write a tribute to Dewey instead. Sam joins Tara in the ambulance and a night's events are covered in a news report. 1 year after the Woodsboro killing, orchestrated by Richie Kirsch and Amber Freeman, Blackmore University professor Laura Crane is murdered by a student, Jason Carvey, wearing a Ghostface costume.
Samara Weaving can scream like a fucking banshee.
We're both delighted to see her in this film, then absolutely gutted that she was in the cold open.
Yeah, she was gutted as well. Jason plots with his roommate Greg to kill sisters Sam and Tara Carpenter to finish the movie that Richie and Amber wanted to make. However, Jason receives a call from a different Ghostface, who's killed Greg and subsequently stabs Jason to death. Sam and Tara now live in New York City, with Tara attending Nevermore Academy alongside fellow survivors Chad and Mindy Meeks Martin, their roommate Quinn Bailey, who seems like a lovely girl, and Mindy's girlfriend Anika Kayoko, and Chad's roommate Ethan Landry.
Tara is in a relationship with Chad.
Why am I so happy for them?
I know. Which Quinn keeps interrupting. Sam works 2 jobs to pay rent and is overly protective of Tara, which Tara feels is suffocating. Sam is seeing a therapist and taking medication to suppress her hallucinations. Sam's father was a serial killer, and last year she found out that her boyfriend Richie was also a serial killer. He only dated Sam as he idolised her father.
Sam is ostracised in public because of an online conspiracy theory that she was a true mastermind of the latest killings. Sam stopped Richie by stabbing him 22 times and slashing his throat and tickling his feet.
Sam is secretly dating Danny. The news of Jason and Greg's murders is reported on the TV. They also talk about Ghostface masks being found in their closets. Sam wants to leave town immediately, but Tara is done running. She won't let one incident define the rest of her life. The Ghostface attacks the sisters and leaves behind a Ghostface mask worn in the 2011 Woodsboro killings.
Admittedly, that supermarket scene is sick. At the NYPD police station, the sisters meet Quinn's detective father, Wayne Bailey, who again seems like an upstanding guy, FBI agent Kirby Reed, yes, a survivor of the 2011 killings, and reporter Gail Weathers, who tells him she spoke to Sidney Prescott and that she has gone into hiding because the pigwigs at the top of the studio wouldn't pay her properly. I mean, protect her family. That isn't a dig at radio science. These decisions are well above their heads, and it's complete horse shit. Sam and Tara are angry with the production company, Gail, as she wrote a book about what happened, even though she promised she would not. Gail called Sam unstable and a born killer. For Gail's trouble, Wednesday knocked her into 2 weeks on Saturday.
Sam's therapist, Christopher Stone, is murdered by Ghostface, who steals Sam's file and leaves behind a mask worn in the Hollywood killings. Wayne suspects that Sam killed her therapist since she had admitted to liking killing Richie, and that she was also in his session notes, which are now stolen. Mindy theorises that the killer is following the rules of the film franchise, specifically the film that anyone can die while the franchise is still continuing. Ghostface attacks the group in the sisters' apartment, murdering Anika with one of the best kills of the franchise and seemingly killing Quinn.
The ladder scene where it goes across, when they're trying to get across to Danny, and Ghostface is just toying with those cat and mouse. And Anika, bless her, she got her fucking shit pushed in hard really as well. It looked fantastic. Great scene. One of my all-time favourite kills in the franchise. Yeah, no, I love that scene. Sam's boyfriend Danny helps the others escape, and Ghostface leaves behind a mask worn in the Windsor College killings. Gail takes the group to an abandoned theatre that she found whilst investigating, which has been set up as a shrine to the Ghostface killers, featuring many items of evidence related to previous massacres now displayed like film props. Ghostface calls Gail at her apartment and torments her about the death of Dewey Riley, before killing her boyfriend Brooks, who we literally saw nothing of, and attacks her. Sam and Tara arrive just in time to stop Ghostface from killing Gale, who is taken to the hospital. Ain't no plot armor like Gale Weathers' plot armor. This is what happens now when you're like one of the executive directors in this bitch. The group agrees to meet Kirby at the theater to trap Ghostface. Wayne tells the group to take public transportation to avoid the killer from taking another shot at them. But it's Halloween, and many people are wearing Ghostface masks as the news of the killing is trending on social media because Twitter's not toxic enough. Mindy is stabbed by Ghostface on the train.
Sam refuses to let Danny inside the theatre as she does not trust him. At the theatre, Sam sees an hallucination of her father, the original Ghostface killer, Billy Loomis. Billy asks Sam to take a knife and to kill the killers. Wayne calls Sam and says that Kirby was fired by the FBI 2 months ago for being mentally unstable. Taking his knife from the original murders, she realises they have been locked inside.
2 Ghostface appear and attack Chad. They manage to stab Tara, who is with Chad. As Chad tries to fight them, he is stabbed both multiple times, putting more holes in him than Pinhead's wank sock. Wayne and Kirby both arrive with guns drawn. Wayne attempts to lend credence towards Kirby being the killer, only to shoot it, because it was going to be fucking Kirby, revealing himself as the 3rd Ghostface and the mastermind. His accomplices are his children, revealed to be Wet Wipe Ethan and still alive Quinn, who faked death to ease suspicion. I hate that I love the Quinn reveal.
It should have been Stu, though.
I agree. With the shrine and everything else, the Stu thing would have worked, but if they ain't going to pay Nave Campbell, you ain't paying for Matthew Lillard as well. We're just going to have to see what he gets up to in Five Nights at Freddy's.
The trio reveal that they are Richie's family, who want to avenge his death. They were responsible for defaming Sam online and plan to frame her with their killing spree. Sam and Tara gain the upper hand and fight off the Bailey family, with Tara stabbing Ethan and Sam killing Quinn. While briefly knocking Wayne unconscious, Sam dons her father's Ghostface costume, taunts Wayne with a phone call using a voice changer, and viciously stabs him to death. Ethan resurfaces, but Kirby smashes the television set that killed Stu Macker over his head, killing him.
Sam agrees to let Tara live her life more independently, and Tara agrees to go to therapy. As Mindy, Chad, and Kirby are taken to the hospital, Sam stares at her father's Ghostface mask before discarding it and following Tara and Danny into the city. Now, firstly, how Chad survived that and we're back. Scream 6, done, in the books. Very, very happy with that. But
our next franchise...
Come on, tell us, what we got coming up next?
It's going to be Nightmare on Elm Street.
Fuck yes! Give me a bit of Freddy.
I am so looking forward to this.
Where's Craven again?
I know! I know. But it shows you what a good filmmaker he is.
Oh, incredible. Wes was the man. So, let's break, because there are a few different films in the Nightmare universe, and
Gets
we
a
are...
bit confusing.
It could be worse. It could be Halloween. And I've also seen some of the other franchises that we're going to be covering, because we've pretty much got the next couple of years laid out. So, alright, so this is going to consist of Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Revenge, Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child, Freddy's Dead, all of them the Nightmare movies combined into one big video. Then we're going to finish it off with Wes Craven's new Nightmare. Now, are we going to be covering the Abomination 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street, where they said Freddy Krueger was an out-and-out paedophile?
No.
No, we're not, because that film doesn't fucking exist.
Nope.
Nope, not in our universe. No. Not going to be covering that shit. But it does lead us into one more.
Yes.
Freddy vs. Jason from 2003.
Yes.
Yes, right.
It is a nightmare film, because it has him in it, but...
Right. This one is going to have to be done, because obviously we want to cover all the big franchises, so at some point we'll be covering Friday. It's definitely not the one after this, but when we finish both of them, however long that may take, whether it takes a couple of months, a couple of years, whatever, once they're all said and done, we'll put them all together, and then we'll do Freddy versus Jason.
Yes.
And that is going to wrap us up until the end of the year.
Yes.
And then we're going to be starting 2024 with a whole new franchise. And the number generator did us dirty on that one.
Yes, it did.
So, we'll be back on Tuesday with another video, and then next Friday, we start Nightmare on Elm Street.